Please joining us from Patna. Thanks all very much indeed for joining us. Mr. Prakash, Singh, straight across to you. You, in fact, were the complainant in this case. This is your case on which the Supreme Court has put. You were the petitioner. You were the petitioner, and the Supreme Court has in fact pronounced these guidelines on the basis of your case. Now, let's turn to this particular issue. Does this incident, where a personal security officer, for some reason, opened fire on his senior, does this illustrate some sort of a psychological crisis, some sort of a breakdown that is going on within India's police force at the moment?
I would put it differently. I would say that the stress and strain of work is so much that it's taking a very heavy toll of our constabulary, and there are moments when they go berserk, they break the normal rules of discipline and behave in a manner which can't be justified.
And does anybody care when a policeman dies?
Well, not many tears are shed when a policeman dies. That's the most.
You were saying that when Parliament was attacked in 2001, the entire army amassed at the borders of Pakistan.
I said so, that when the Parliament was attacked, not that any MP died, but the entire Indian army was moved to the borders, and Pakistan was threatened. But here we have policemen die in dozens. I mean, you have instances where one IED kills about 20 or 30 constables in one go, and yet hardly any tear is shed for those policemen.
So the policeman is born to die.
The policeman serves to die, I would say. I mean, that seems to be the general impression among the Indian people.
Kiran Bedi, why does the policeman suffer from such a crisis in his reputation? Nobody likes policemen. The human rights agencies don't like them. The government treats them as stepchildren. Society at large is suspicious of them. Why does nobody like the cop? And when a cop dies, why is there so little sympathy?
Well, we use police when we need them and ignore them when we think we can ignore them. And I think over the period, we've only been using police. We've not looked after them. We've not professionalized them. We've not really cared for them. We've actually been indifferent to them. We've only been critical about them. We've not looked at their welfare enough. We've not invested into their training. We've not looked at their personnel policies. We've not looked at enough of leadership. All the points you talked about which have come through the Supreme Court judgment, thanks to Mr. Prakash Singh's petition, and thanks to the Supreme Court judgment on 22nd September, all the points which you, Sarika, talked about are those which are 30 years old. These were recommended by the National Police Commission. They've come today. So that means you are into areas of 30 years. So how can you cover up these areas of 30 years which are actually a course correction?
And you were telling us earlier, Ms. Kiran Bedi, that in fact courage has no rewards in the police anymore. A courageous officer is probably consigned to the darkness nowadays.
Well, I think total good, courageous leadership qualities at times work as a disincentive. In fact, they work against the final selection, because having a courageous, independent-minded officer is not is something not playing safe with. Today, a courageous leadership would have a mind of his or her own. I think is a threat to the system. I think the system is not encouraging independent leadership. And you talked about politicization, which the Supreme Court stepped in to correct.
Mr.
So that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Right, Mr. Anasana, do you agree with that a courageous police officer is in fact a threat to the entire system?
I wouldn't say that a courageous police officer is a threat to the entire system. In fact, I quite agree with what Ms. Bedi has said and what Mr. Prakash Singh has said. But then I'll go a step further. I'll say that policemen is at the receiving end, or the bias, which is, or rather the anti-police bias, or which the society is showing towards us. See, what has happened is that the problem is more deep-rooted. On the one hand, there is a preponderance, there is a majority of the lawbreakers now. The minority is of those who are abiding by the laws. And so in a situation like this, when you are trying to enforce the rule of law, you are the receiving end. Nobody loves you, nobody likes you, and you have to work with your hands tied behind. And that is why our job is becoming even more difficult. But nevertheless, as I said, that I quite agree with Mr. Prakash Singh and Ms. Kiran Bedi, and both of them, they have been our role models. They are the persons who have shown us that even in such situations we can deliver, and that is what a policeman is supposed to do. But
increasingly, Mr. Prakash Singh, are policemen living by the bullet? Are the strains just so great that they're going berserk and just whipping out the revolver and going berserk?
No, I wouldn't put it that way. In fact, the Indian police is very humane in its approach, and if you look at the history of the Indian police, yes, there are instances when they have committed excesses, but by and large they are very law-abiding. And let us, if you...
Well, there are lots of arguments I can have with you on that, but let's at this point, time for a short break here on India 360. The Indian police increasingly up against a militarized army of militants armed to the teeth. Are the strains becoming too much for the Indian policeman? Is the Indian policeman being orphaned by the Indian state? When we come back, we'll bring you another disturbing story on the police. 2 DIGs of the Bihar Police test positive for HIV. Stay with India 360.
On India at 9 in Srinagar. Now protests over the death of 2 people killed in an accident with a police vehicle. We take a closer look at the anger on the streets of Kashmir in the recent past.
At night.
CNN-IBN.
Welcome back to India 360. We're discussing whether policemen are the stepchildren of the Indian state. Has the Indian government withdrawn its protective cover from the policemen? Are policemen completely orphaned? Here's another story that illustrates the lack of awareness among India's police force and the fact that the guardians of public well-being are themselves terribly unprotected. In Bihar, there is an increasing number of HIV cases in the police force, and the HIV positive even include 2 senior police officers. Prabhakar Kumar has the report.
The police in Bihar is fighting a new enemy these days, the dreaded HIV virus. There are 20 reported cases of HIV positive patients in the Patna police hospital. Concerned by the rising number of HIV cases in the state police force, doctors have forwarded some suggestions to the headquarters. They feel that all new recruits in Bihar police force should carry HIV negative certificates. Men presently serving in the force should undergo HIV tests, and such tests should be carried out periodically.
हमने सरकार से अनुरोध किया है कि HIV की जांच सभी पुलिसकर्मियों में अनिवार्य रूप से कराई जाए, खास करके पुलिसकर्मियों की बहाली के पूर्व ही उनकी पूरे स्वास्थ्य की जांच कराकर उसका हेल्थ प्रोफाइल बना लिया जाए.
The government is taking the issue quite seriously, especially after names of 2 senior DIG rank IPS officers figured in the list of HIV positive cases.
Doctors have reported that there have been cases of HIV positive testing amongst officers, and not only constables and lower officers but also of senior officers.
Blood samples of the senior officers have been sent to leading labs in Delhi for further confirmation.
It's not only hundreds of cops, but 2 senior IPS officers of DIG rank have been tested HIV positive, and a much larger number has not undergone any tests. The real number of HIV positives in Bihar Police could be mind-boggling, and a government intervention is immediately required before the situation runs completely out of hand. In Patna, Prabhakar Kumar.
Shocking report there about the prevalence of HIV among senior police officers in Bihar. Let's carry on now with our discussion on the police force. Is the life of a policeman cheap in today's India? Let's go to Kiran Bedi. Kiran Bedi, 800 to 1100 policemen die every year. Do you feel that the political executive has ceased to protect the policemen? We had the case in the London underground shooting, for example, where the policemen who accidentally shot the man who they thought was a terrorist were not prosecuted. In our country, do you think policemen could be similarly protected, and should they be?
You see, it all depends on I think, the growth of leadership. In our service, we neither groom leadership nor do we recognize leadership. It's all a matter of leadership. We are 22 lakh police officers. We're looking at amazing quality of leadership. I think the department has hardly around the country has policies of grooming leadership, training leadership, recognizing leadership, rewarding leadership. I think that's the key. How much of importance do we give to recognizing leadership? You're talking about AIDS problem. I think it's all talking about ethical leadership. How much do we reward ethical leadership? There's been so much of a politicalization, which the Supreme Court today stands to have recognized. The moment you politicize a service, the first casualty is leadership. And leadership then is in name. It's not a healthy leadership.
Right.
I think what this country is looking forward to is healthy, deserving, ethical, fit leadership.
Is that the key problem, that motivation levels to become a good leader within the police force are just so low? You're facing an army of Naxals whose motivation levels may be far higher than the motivation of a policeman.
Motivation level of policemen at the ground level is definitely very low today, because there is a general impression among the constabulary and the armed forces personnel in general that whatever sacrifices they make, whatever advantages they achieve for the state, whatever mileage
nobody will ever recognize them.
See, it is all neutralized, nullified or surrendered by the politicians in the course of their negotiations. So the motivational level today is very low. I mean, they go in the line of fire because there is no getting away from it.
Mr. Anil Sinha, when a policeman is called upon to die for India, don't you think that the government is imposing a burden on him which the government is not prepared to meet halfway?
Well, I see it differently. What I say is that in a situation of internal security and in a democracy like ours, you have to have these kind of difficulties. But the dependence of the policemen basically on the infrastructural arrangements that are prevailing today, that has to be seen in its proper context. What has happened is that police has been put at a very low priority. I'll quote from an example.
Right, so I'm going to have to actually...
change of government here in Bihar. Let me complete this. What has happened that the new chief minister, when he took over, he realized that for good governance, police is very important. And he has provided us with a kind of the support system that has now made our jobs easier, and the police has started delivering.
So the police has started delivering. So I'm going to have to actually end that discussion. The tyranny of the clock is ticking. Unfortunately, this is the tyranny of time. I'm going to have to actually end this discussion. Thank you very much to all our panelists. Anil Sinha, Kiran Bedi, Prakash Singh in the studio here. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on the discussion on whether policemen are the stepchildren of the Indian state. When a policeman dies, does anybody really care? Up ahead on India 360, our special series, God's Own Children. We bring you the story of a young woman who lets nothing come between her and her paintings.
जनता दल यू और अपना दल का साथ साथ